Dr. Claud Anderson handed us a blueprint, but I think it's time for an upgrade. And before I say another word, because I don't want y'all coming for me, I want to be clear about what this video is and what it is not. I am not here to tear down his work or bury PowerNomics, and I'm not here to tell you that Dr. Claud Anderson got it wrong, because that's not what I think. I am here because hindsight gave us something that Dr. Anderson did not have when he sat down to write. And what hindsight gave us is an update. So this is not me taking or dismantling his work. This is an upgrade. We honor the architect and we update the blueprint. Both and, not either or. So with that, I am Jice Johnson, business strategist and economic developer. And on this channel, I'm talking about business, leadership, and global politics. And so if you like that type of content, I want you to like, subscribe, and share, and help me reach others that need to hear this information. And I want to give y'all a real quick thank you because we just hit 5,000 subscribers. So super excited about that. Thank you so much. Please keep sharing. Please keep liking. Please keep subscribing. All right. Dr. Claud Anderson, he gave us a blueprint. It had 5 floors. And on the first floor, he built economics, right? Or he put economics. Build the money, then the rest will follow. Now, here's what I need you to understand before we go further into this analysis and breakdown. Dr. Claud Anderson is not alone in that at all. He was actually standing in one of the deepest, most repeated intellectual traditions of all of Black thought. Booker T. Washington preached it: get financially independent first, build, run your own businesses, and stability will follow. Marcus Garvey preached it: build our own enterprises, our own institutions, do for self. Elijah Muhammad, right? I'm sorry, I'm not of the Nation of Islam, but the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam built an entire program around it, right? The do for self programs, economic self-reliance, the savings, the farmland, and Black-owned businesses, right? So economics first is not a fringe idea that I am just pulling out the woodworks to argue with or to debate. It is one of the most serious, most repeated strategies our people have ever produced, and we continue to build off of that today. So understand that when I say I want to update what Dr. Claud Anderson did, I'm not just, speaking about him specifically. I am stepping into a debate that is more than 100 years old. But here's the thing about that debate. It already has 2 sides, because while Washington was preaching economics first, W.E.B. Du Bois was actually pushing back. And early on, Du Bois was saying that you had to have political and civil liberties before you built your way into safety. He basically said that you cannot build your way into safety while your rights are being stripped away from you. But this is really important. I want to hold this true. I want to be really intentional to pin what I'm about to say next, because this is kind of the crux of where I see us at this point, right? Because here's something that Du Bois did. Because he did not hold that position like it was a religion. At some point, he read the conditions. When the Depression gutted Black communities and it became clear that integration was not coming anytime soon, Du Bois pivoted. And he was right about that. Integration didn't come for another 30 plus years. So the man who was basically fighting Washington on the rights first turned around and said, yes, build a separate economy, build the cooperative institutions, do for self. Not because he had abandoned the principles of rights first, but because the conditions had changed and he was honest enough to change with them. So I feel like that is the hidden lesson within the lesson, right? I need you to just hold that for the rest of this video. The sequence is not a commandment. The sequence answers to the conditions. So you read what's on the ground, right? The ground that you are currently standing on, and then you build that accordingly. So this argument, economics first or politics first, has been alive in our intellectual tradition for over a century. And I am not creating something new. I am reading the conditions that we are standing in right now, and I'm telling you that they point to a different side. So let's talk about what has changed in the ground that we're standing on right now. And again, I want to be careful with what I'm saying, because what I'm saying is likely to challenge the way that you see it. And I want to walk us into that, right? The easy version of this would be like, oh, there used to be violence and now there's legislation, but that's really just too clean. The truth of the matter is that there has always been a both and. Both violence and legislation have coexisted. Physical violence, legislative violence working together against this. What has changed is ownership. So I want to go back to Tulsa, Oklahoma for a second, right? Let's ask the question that we didn't ask before. Why did they burn it? Yes, because there was an accusation, right? Yes, because it was thriving. Yes, all of that. But why did they burn it? They burned it because it was owned. There was something there. There was Black ownership, dense enough, real enough, threatening enough that they brought fire to it. And the violence was a response to ownership, right? And then after the fire, after the bombing, they legislated the ownership away so that it could never come back. First fire, then the legislation. Both of them aimed at the exact same thing. They're both aimed at the ownership. So now look at us today. We own nearly nothing. When we have a storefront, when we have a business, most often we are leasing that building, not owning it. And they are not burning down a building that they own. There's almost nothing left to burn that actually belongs to us. The target has not disappeared because they decided not to be violent. The target disappeared because the ownership did. So the tactic shifted. They do not need to burn down what we built because increasingly they have not allowed us to build it in the first place. They would rather that we just never moved into their leased building at all, right? And the strategy moved from destroying our ownership to preventing ownership. There's another shift. Blatant, open, physical violence against us is now openly condemned. It gets protested. It carries a social cost that it did not used to carry, right? It does not mean that we do not still experience violence. Of course, I mean, that's just undisputed. Absolutely, we do. It does mean that the experience has shifted, right? Because, I mean, if we walked outside and saw somebody eating lunch under dead hanging bodies, like we would all be, you know? Okay. So, despite the fact that we do still experience violence, I am literally not wanting to underestimate that in any way. I want to acknowledge that that violence does not look the same way and is not socially acceptable in a way that it once was. So what they've done is they've moved it from that violence, and basically it's now it now has a quieter, more subtle face. Now it's in the methodology, right? And like once you see it in the methodology, you really just start to see it everywhere. So, for example, look at housing appraisals. The undervaluing of Black owned homes is not like one bad appraiser having a bad day. I even mentioned before there's already been a study done around what it would look like to increase representation inside of the field of appraising. And the reason why that's not going to work is because the appraisals, because it's built into the methodology of the appraisals, right? It's built into how comparable values get pulled from neighborhoods that were already devalued into a formula that bakes that bias right in when it calls itself objective. Let's take a look at lending. It's the same story. The disparity is not only about who gets a yes and who gets a no across somebody's desk. It is built into the methodology. The 5 C's, racist. It is built into the models and into the criteria and into the math itself. There's example after example after example. This is not a feelings problem. This is not a hearts and minds problem. This is a policy problem. This is a methodology problem. We are fighting a legislative and structural battle, whether we ever have a name for that or not. And what this tells me, it tells me that the lever that matters the most right now is political. It tells me that the proper policies, the right protections actually written into law, if we would ever have that, representation could have a greater effect than it has ever had. If the methodology was fixed in appraisals, then yes, potentially having more representation in the appraisal industry could then make a difference. The fight is on the legislative floor. So that is the floor that we have to be able to reach. So I want to jump back to what I was saying about Dr. Claud Anderson and his 5-story framework, right? Or his 5-floor framework. So here's the update. First, I added a floor. I added a floor beneath the first floor. This is like the garden level, right? And I resequenced a few things that come after that. So I want to dig into that. Floor 0 or the garden level, right? Organized people. This is the floor that Dr. Claud Anderson does not have. This is the foundation beneath the foundation. And it's first because this is the one thing that they can't take from us with a pen. History has proven that you do not need money to build political power. The civil rights movement did not start with a war chest. The labor movement did not start with capital. Fred Hampton's Rainbow Coalition did not start with money. It started with people organized who understood that their power was with each other. Organized people create leverage that capital cannot immediately neutralize because you cannot redline a movement and you cannot foreclose on solidarity like that, right? Everything else in this framework is built on top of this floor. So if we do not have this one, we do not have a building, okay? Then we have floor 1, political power. This comes from organized people. It is not purchased, it is derived. And this is where I break the chicken and egg problem that traps a lot of our thinking. We keep asking, do we need money to get power or power to get money? And the answer is that organized people actually give you political power without requiring money first. Political power is what creates the conditions, the land, the access, the protections that wealth building actually needs to survive. So you do not buy your way into safety, you organize your way around it. There are many, many, many examples of this, but in order to not make this a 2-hour lecture, there are many examples of this. So floor 2 is economics and wealth building. Now we build the money, right? And so notice this is the same floor that Dr. Claud Anderson, he put first. It's not gone. It's not diminished. It's just moved to where it can actually hold, because economics built inside of political protection is what actually will compound. Economics that are built without it gets prevented before it really forms, or it's stripped once it does, right? And while we're here, I also want to acknowledge business is not the same as economics. We collapse those two often, like we put them together, and I think it costs us. Economics is land, it's assets, it's inheritance, it is collective ownership. It is the insurance and the utilities and the energy and the housing and the lending and the patient capital that a community actually can run on. Business is one tool inside of economics. It's not the whole house. So we should just make that distinction. So now, floor 3, media and education. Now, I collapsed these into one floor because in the year of our Lord 2026, they are functionally inseparable, right? Like our education is consumed through media now. The two of them shape political consciousness at the same time, and they basically are feeding the same function. So we build them with the same intention, right, together, because they are doing that same job and then deciding what a generation, these two things together are deciding what a generation believes is possible. So that's media and education. Now we have floor 4, and that's justice. Now, I moved justice to the bottom of the sequence, right? But I want you to hear me. It's not because this one, it's not because justice, so what am I trying to say? It's not because justice doesn't matter. What I actually think is that justice is an outcome. It's not a precondition. Police accountability, legal equity, the courts finally working the way they're supposed to. I mean, you can argue about the way that they're supposed to, but the way that they're written as they're supposed to, all of that shifts when the floors beneath it are solid. So justice is going to follow power. It doesn't create power. We have been demanding justice from a position with no floors underneath it. And then for the most part, we wonder why it doesn't hold. But if we build the floors, then justice becomes attainable. So there's one other layer that I think goes through here, and that is the proaction layer. I think it runs through every single floor, top to bottom. And I need you to hold on to the proactive concept more than any individual floor. Like every floor has to be built proactively. You do not build organized people in response to a shooting. By then it's too late and you're just reacting. You do not build political power in response to an election you already lost. You do not build economic infrastructure in response to a foreclosure notice or to somebody poking at us on the internet. And I'll just leave that where it is. You build it before you need it so that when the crisis comes, and the crisis always comes, the infrastructure is already standing and it holds. Reaction builds nothing that lasts, only intention does. And I've been researching over the last 100 years our boycotting efforts. So believe me, I'm going to talk about that because I think it's really important for us to understand how our reactive nature is not accomplishing what we think it does. And I feel it in the moment, but it is not giving us the things that it needs to give us in the long run. So the through line, the thread that has to hold through every layer is proaction. I'm not giving this video as a way to be like scholarly or to add to, quite frankly, what I feel is an overkill of very eloquent content creators. I don't know, very eloquent, very intellectually savvy content creators. I'm impressed. And I also always stress that I'm a business strategist and an economic developer because sometimes, as someone whose profile is just like, not I've been out here doing this work for 10 years, but there's an elevation in my profile recently. So as I read some of these comments, I'm like, I try not to respond because I get upset. But like one thing that upsets me is when somebody is like, oh, you're just a content creator. It's like, absolutely not. Actually, this is, why am I recording? Why do I always record late or, whatever, is because I'm not a content creator. Actually, this is not what I do for my day job. What I do for my day job is business strategy and economic development and community development, right? So there's that. But I'm saying all this to say that I am not talking about this from just the purpose of like giving us information and providing us with some sort of scholarly, intellectual, academic breakdown. That's not why I'm making this video. We're living through a reversal right now. Like we're actively living through it. The old order is that the old order, what am I trying to say? The old order is that economics buys political influence, right? So we were taught to chase the economics first, and we assumed that protection would catch up because we could buy our politicians. Hindsight is saying no. And it's doing that in an environment where they are essentially keeping us from owning anything through policy and through methodology. This is not just, it's not even just us. The environment is changing from ownership. I mean, almost everything is a subscription now. They don't even want white folks to own anything. I'm going to just leave that right there. I want to go back to what I said. Remember Du Bois. Remember what made him pivot. He turned toward building a separate economy because the political door, and at that time, integration, was shut in his face. So look at where we're standing right now. That door has opened. We are integrated. The thing that Du Bois gave up waiting for, we did eventually get. And what came through that door, right behind it, was money. For a long stretch now, money has ruled our politics. And so if you didn't have capital, you did not have a voice. And the people with the most capital wrote the rules. The condition that Du Bois responded to has flipped, and a new condition has taken its place, right? But I think the conditions are moving again. I'm not saying they're moving fast. This is something that I'm watching closely. But at the time that I'm filming this, democratic socialists are taking this country by storm. They are upsetting the status quo. They started in one city and it is now spreading. And it's not that the concepts are brand new. They are absolutely not. But the timing, it's the timing. There's a shifting that is happening. And it's not just happening in the US, there is a global shift that's happening. So they are winning races against opponents who outspent them many, many, many times over. And for the first time in a long time, a movement is proving that organized people can stand against big money and actually win. So whatever you think of their politics, take a look at their platform, because they are a live demonstration of floor 0 and floor 1 working in real time. Organized people turning into political power without buying it first. And again, if you read PowerNomics, that's what Dr. Claud Anderson initially thought, right? Is we need the economic power to buy the political power. We buy our politicians. It's that lobbying and that quid pro quo. He talks about it. He wasn't wrong. Big money has been in politics for a long time, but the ground is shifting. The ground is shifting. There is political power being amassed without buying it first. Now, layer that on top of something bigger. We are also living through, as I said, the next major global economic shift in a century. The whole board is moving. The currencies, the alliances, the trade routes, the rules underneath everything that we think we know is moving in a way that they have not moved in 100 years. People power proving it can stand against big money, landing at the exact same time that the entire global board is in motion. This is not a small thing. That may be the thing that makes this our moment. That may be the thing that makes this our moment. When the board is moving like this, you do one or two things. You set your infrastructure down while the ground is still soft, or you wait and you inherit whatever someone else is going to build on top of you. And if there was ever a time to lay down our own infrastructure, it is now. And if there was ever a time to stop responding to what other people are doing and start setting the tone for ourselves, it is now. Before I close this out, I have a hard thing that I want to say. A lot of us have started to believe that any mobilization is good mobilization. We see people in the streets, we see a hashtag moving, we see a boycott trending, and we tell ourselves, well, at least it's something. At least it's something. Like the number of times that I have seen in my comments across Facebook, across Instagram, and across YouTube, and across YouTube. At least it's something. And I just want to ask you a question. Are we worth more than the least? Are we worth more than the least? Because at least it's something. Is the bar of a people who have stopped expecting to win. And I'm just not interested in the least. I'm not interested in motion for the feeling of motion. I am interested in whether the thing we are doing actually builds a floor that will hold. Reactive gets us, at least it's something. Strategic gets us, we hope, we pray, we cross our fucking fingers to free. I think we are worth the strategy. I think we are worth more than the least. So, okay, let me bring it home. Dr. Claud Anderson, he gave us a blueprint, and he gave it to us inside a long-standing intellectual tradition that runs for longer than a century. We have Washington and Garvey and the Nation and all of them telling us to build economics first. I honor every one of them. They were building with, what they were building with was the hindsight that they had. They were building with what they knew, what they had, with the conditions that made sense at that time. We are building with the hindsight that we have. And our hindsight says that the sequence has to change. Du Bois changed his mind when his conditions changed. And that really was not a weakness. It was wisdom. And I am hoping, I'm asking that we will do the same. Economic power matters 100%. I am not here to belittle that in any way. I have built a career off of economic power, building economic power. But I do believe that right now is the time for people to organize first, political power. Then economics can be built inside of the protection that we can create for ourselves. Our media and education is going to hold our consciousness, and justice for our people will be the outcome that makes all of this possible. Every floor that we need to build has to be done with proaction. We are living through a reversal. We are living through the largest global economic shift in a century. The ground is soft. The board is moving. And this is the moment that infrastructure gets laid or it gets lost. This is the moment that we set the tone or we inherit someone else's. I'm not interested in at least it's something. I'm interested in building something that holds. And I'm choosing to build the floors in order before the next tragedy is a thing that finally forces our hand. I think we are worth more than the least. So let's build like it. If this gave you something to think about, I encourage you to go deeper with me on Substack. That is where I am breaking down more of my frameworks. And if you like this video, hit that subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And I will see you in the next one.